You've seen the number.
$30 per square foot for the shell. Maybe $40 if you want insulation included. A 40 by 60 Quonset kit for $72,000. Sounds like the deal of the decade. Until you realize that's not your total. That's not even half your total. And the part they don't mention? The curved walls that make everything else cost more. If you're researching Quonset Barndominiums or trying to figure out if the numbers actually work, you're in the right place. We break down real costs on alternative housing every week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Stay with me here because we're about to walk through the real numbers, the ones that don't show up in the marketing, the material costs that shifted in 2025, the foundation work that's different for these structures, and the one expense that almost nobody talks about until they're already committed and the budget's breaking. By the end, you'll know exactly what a Quonset Barndominium actually costs to build, not the advertised number, the real one. A Quonset Barndominium is a home built inside a steel arch structure, the kind that started as military barracks in World War II. All metal, self-supporting, no interior load-bearing walls needed. The appeal is clear: wide open space, fast assembly, a shell that arrives prefabricated and goes up in days. People see that and think affordable. They see the kit price and start planning. But the kit is just the beginning. Let's start with what you're actually buying when you order a Quonset shell in 2025. The base price for a standard residential-grade arch kit runs between $28 and $45 per square foot. That's for the metal panels, the fasteners, the end walls, and the instructions. A 30 by 50 structure, 1,500 square feet, shell cost somewhere between $42,000 and $67,000. A 40 by 60, 2,400 square feet, shell cost between $67,000 and $108,000. Notice the range. That's not just manufacturer markup, that's steel. Steel prices move. They respond to tariffs, trade policy, global demand, fuel costs. In 2023, prices dropped. By late 2024, they started climbing again. Right now, in early 2025, we're sitting in a middle zone. Not peak, not bottom, just elevated and unpredictable. What that means for you is simple. If you get a quote in February and don't lock it in, the price in May could be different, sometimes by thousands. And here's what most people miss. The kit price doesn't include shipping, doesn't include the concrete foundation you'll need, doesn't include insulation that actually works, doesn't include doors, windows, and the fact that you're about to spend a fortune making the inside livable.
Let's talk foundation, because this is where Quonset structures diverge from traditional builds. You need a slab. Stem wall with slab, piers with a reinforced floor system, something solid enough to anchor the steel and support the load. Most people budget $8 to $12 per square foot for a basic slab. For that same 1,500 square foot Quonset, that's $12,000 to $18,000. But Quonset structures often need more. The arch shape creates outward thrust at the base. You're not just pouring concrete, you're engineering it to resist lateral forces. In some soil conditions, you need deeper footings. In others, you need tension tie-downs embedded in the slab. If your site has drainage issues or a slope, costs go up fast. Foundation work for a Quonset Barndominium often lands between $15,000 and $28,000, depending on size and site conditions. That's before the shell even arrives. Now let's talk about the thing nobody wants to hear: insulation. A bare steel Quonset is a heat conductor. In summer, it's an oven. In winter, it's a freezer. Condensation forms on the interior surface, drips, collects, causes rust if you don't manage it. You need insulation, real insulation, and it's not simple. Spray foam is the most common solution. Closed-cell spray foam applied directly to the interior of the steel shell. It insulates, it seals, it prevents condensation. Cost? $4 to $7 per square foot for a proper application. For that 1,500 square foot shell, you're looking at $6,000 to $10,500. For the larger 40 by 60, it's closer to $9,600 to $16,800. Some people try cheaper methods: fiberglass bats with a vapor barrier, rigid foam boards, reflective bubble wrap insulation. Here's the part most estimates leave out. Those methods don't stop condensation the way spray foam does. You end up with moisture issues, mold potential, thermal bridging through the metal ribs. You can save money up front, but you'll spend it later managing problems. Now about that $30 per square foot number you keep seeing online. It's real, but it's not your cost. That number refers to the shell, just the metal arch. Sometimes it includes basic insulation, sometimes not. It almost never includes foundation, site prep, utilities, or anything inside. When someone tells you a Quonset Barndominium costs $30 to $50 per square foot, they're talking about raw structure, not a finished home. Here's what actually happens. You pay for the shell, you pay for the foundation, you pay for insulation, then you realize you still don't have a house. You have an insulated metal tube on a slab. Now comes the part that surprises people. Building the interior of a Quonset Barndominium is not like finishing a traditional structure. The curved walls complicate everything. You can leave it open, embrace the arch, go full industrial loft aesthetic. Some people do that. It works if you're okay with exposed metal, minimal privacy, and creative furniture placement. Most people want rooms, bedrooms, bathrooms, an actual kitchen with walls. That means framing interior partition walls. Standard stud walls, sure, but now you're working inside a curve. Your exterior walls aren't plumb. You're building a rectangular interior inside an arched shell, which leaves dead space along the edges. Framing those interior walls runs about $8 to $15 per linear foot, depending on height and whether you're running plumbing or electrical inside them. Drywall follows. That's another $4 to $6 per square foot installed and finished. Electrical gets complicated because you can't easily run wire through the metal shell. Everything routes through your interior framing or surface-mounted conduit. Expect to pay a bit more than you would in a stick-built home, maybe 15 to 20% more depending on your electrician's familiarity with the structure type. Plumbing is similar. Your main lines run under the slab or through interior walls. If you want a bathroom on an exterior wall, you're either building a chase or running exposed pipes. Budget accordingly. HVAC deserves its own mention. That curved shell creates airflow challenges. Hot air rises and collects at the peak, cold air sinks. Without proper duct design, you get temperature stratification. The solution usually involves multiple zones or strategically placed returns. Cost? Expect 10 to 20% more than a traditional build of the same square footage. Flooring, cabinetry, countertops, fixtures, appliances, all normal costs, all necessary, all adding up while you're still recovering from the insulation bill. Interior finishes for a Quonset Barndominium typically run $60 to $120 per square foot. On the lower end if you're doing a lot yourself and keeping finishes basic. On the higher end if you're hiring out and want quality materials. For that 1,500 square foot shell, you're looking at $90,000 to $180,000 just to finish the inside.
So where does that leave you compared to other options? A traditional stick-built barndominium in 2025 runs about $120 to $200 per square foot turnkey. For 1,500 square feet, that's $180,000 to $300,000. A prefab or modular barndominium? Similar range, $130 to $220 per square foot, depending on finishes and manufacturer. A Quonset Barndominium? Once you add everything up, shell, foundation, insulation, interior finishes, utilities, you're landing somewhere between $110 and $190 per square foot. On the lower end, if you self-contract, do some work yourself, and keep finishes modest. On the higher end, if you hire a general contractor and want a polished result. It's not dramatically cheaper. Sometimes it's not cheaper at all. What you're really getting is speed and openness. The shell goes up fast. You get massive, clear span space with no interior supports. You get a unique aesthetic, if that matters to you, but you're not getting a budget miracle. This makes sense for a specific kind of buyer, someone who values wide-open interior space and doesn't mind working around curved walls, someone willing to self-contract or act as their own general to control costs, someone who's comfortable with a non-traditional aesthetic or plans to fully embrace the industrial look. It works well for workshop/living spaces, for people who need a large garage bay with living quarters attached, for rural properties where code enforcement is minimal and design flexibility is high. It doesn't make sense if you want a traditional home layout with normal rooms and standard resale appeal. It doesn't make sense if you're hiring everything out and comparing bids to stick-built options. The cost advantage disappears, and you're left with complications that don't exist in conventional construction. Walk away if you're chasing the $30 per square foot dream. That's not the real number, and it never was. Walk away if you're not prepared to problem solve around the curved shell. Every trade you hire will need to adapt. Walk away if resale value matters and you're building in a conventional suburban market. Quonset homes are niche, appraisers struggle, buyers are fewer. Here's what it comes down to. A Quonset Barndominium is a real option. It's not a scam, it's not a gimmick. but it's not cheap in the way people assume. The shell is affordable. Everything else costs what it costs, sometimes more because of the structure type. If you go in understanding that, budgeting for the real total, and valuing what the design actually offers, it can work. If you're expecting to build a finished home for $70,000 or $80,000 because you saw a kit price online, you're heading toward disappointment. Know the number, the whole number, then decide.